Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with possibility coach and founder of YU2SHINE, Victoria Rader. She was born in Ukraine and the former USSR, and the Soviet Union did not make it easy or possible to leave the country. Yet the regime could not stop neither her nor her Ukrainian freedom, seeking genes from dreaming, creating, pursuing, and ultimately proving that everything is possible. She found it possible to travel the world and see 40 countries. Today, she is a possibility coach, transformational speaker, founder, internationally best-selling author, and so much more. Enjoy this interview.
Thanks for taking some time out. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And before we get into your life as a coach and founder, I want to know, how did you do during COVID, and how did that time period, the 2 years, change you now that we're kind of coming out of it?
It actually was very significant and foundational because prior to the shutdown, I had a very unique process with that. I used to, right around, half point through 2019 and into the fall of 2019, I started regularly selling all of the in-person manifesting seminars that I was doing. And I had this gentle guidance, why don't you just create, instead of trying to constantly repeating the same stuff while receiving and channeling and creating so much new stuff, and that gives me life, bringing new stuff. Just create an online subscription and a private group for that. And I was like, sure, I will always follow the inner guidance, I will create it. And my assumption was it was to have created a space for continual live creation. I was thrilled about it. And so the idea was kind of finalized in December 2019, and I launched what is now Quantum Freedom Family, part of our Empower Me Academy, on January 24th, 2020. And then, of course, within 2 short months, the world had shut down. And the miracle of that process did not get lost on me because we had a system in place. All of our clients felt supported. We kept adding substance to it. So in my case, the COVID was a space to have allowed for the miracle to unfold. And it was true for me, it was true for my family, it was true for my clients. It wasn't easy. We've lost people, everybody has, right? But the miracle, nevertheless, was just palpable and something that everybody would come back to and say, yes, we are guided, we are cared for, if only we care enough to seek and follow that guidance.
So let me take you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders, at a career day, and you're standing up there and a kid looks up and says, what do you do for a living and how are you qualified to do it? How would you answer that child?
I will tell him, you have 2 voices inside you. You think it's a big secret, and you sometimes are afraid to let people know that there is one voice that's not nice, and that's asking you, how could you do it? And that is calling you names. Some names are even worse than some names you've thought of calling somebody else. And yet there is another voice. And sometimes it's much quieter, and it's the voice that tells you, keep going. And sometimes it says, you got this. So every day of my working life, I help you first hear that quiet voice and then listen to it and then achieve any dream you secretly have by following that voice. That is in a nutshell what I would have told a third grader.
Talk to me a little bit about growing up. What was your dream when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was 5, I wanted to be a flight attendant, travel, and I wanted to be a teacher. On the side, I wanted to be a detective. I created journals and journals and journals with fake criminal profiles and solving issues. And quite frankly, the miracle of my life is which I think is for all of us if we ponder on it, is that I see those 3 patterns in what I do. I think there is a criminal pattern that we carry that sabotages us, that I get to discover. I get to travel and teach and train. So my dream maybe not in the same way that a 5-year-old had it, or 7 or 10-year-old had it, but has unfolded.
So, talk to me a little bit about where you grew up, regionally, and kind of how the seeds of who you are today began. How did that start?
Absolutely. I was born in the former Soviet Union, in the part that is currently established on the map quite prominently. I'm Ukrainian. And at the time that I was born, the Soviet Union was in its final stages of meltdown. And, the freedom for those parts of the former Union that were ready to claim it was about to be born. But I caught quite a bit of still the absence of free agency and free choice. And from the very early age, for example, I often say, I've mentioned I love to travel. Well, that was not really a possibility in the country I was born into, because you not only needed to have an entry visa to some foreign country, you had to have an exit visa. An exit visa would have been a stamp in your passport that your government allows you to leave the country. And you could not have gotten that stamp unless you were commissioned by the Communist Party to go into some of the missions that it deemed you worthy of pursuing. And so it was a far-fetched dream, really, to go to places that I was dreaming about as a child. But the gift of the lack of that external freedom was, huge, because probably into my teens, I realized that while I can't choose the classes to take in high school, right? The schedule is given to me, minus the foreign language, the only choice I could make, German or English in my school. But the classes were pre-selected. Everybody took the same ones. The holidays were celebrated with the same ones. And all the external choices were done for you. The election consisted of one candidate and 2 boxes, yes or no. And if you voted no, you were questioned and encouraged by all means to make the correct choice of a yes for that one candidate. But all of that has created a very clear understanding that while the external world I could not change, nobody, unless I allowed them, could walk with their dirty feet inside my inner world. And that is where I was free. That is the world where I was free to travel. This is the world where I was free to create. And I believe it was a phenomenal gift that I've received, because I've learned that freedom, first, foremost, and forever, is an internal, event. It is an internal event. And so having come to the United States and understanding that now I was in an environment where that internal ability to create would have the external support is a gift that I never take for granted. I've been here for over 27 years, and there's not a day that I'm ungrateful for it.
So in your life, who would you consider a role model or a hero for you?
First and foremost, my mom and dad, and not saying it just because it's, one of the right things to say, like creating world peace. I believe that's the most important thing as well. But with my mom and dad, my dad was the editor-in-chief for the original newspaper, and as such, when in 1986 we had a Chernobyl disaster happen with nuclear leak, he was sent by the party 3 days after the explosion to go locally to where the explosion took place and then come back and report that everything was fine. So he went, he came home throwing up, with minor radiation poisoning, and refused to do so. And I witnessed the price of integrity, and I witnessed what it meant to stand for what you believe. So my parents didn't have to sit me down and tell me what it is to live an authentic life. They lived it and they paid for it. And it was the greatest motivation for me. So I always look at both of them as my heroes. I've sponsored them into the United States, witnessed my dad working an 8-hour job work with all his degrees. He spoke 5 languages. English wasn't one of them. So when he came here, he said, I'm not doing welfare. I am physically capable. And I saw this brilliant man working shoulder to shoulder with other people of equal caliber who did not speak the language, laying pipes from 3 in the morning to, to 100-degree weather sometimes, never complaining, making his $8 an hour long enough until he could learn the language and then do what he does best, which is start his own business. And so they don't have cakes, but they sure are pretty high on the hero scale for me.
Wonderful. So if you could meet anybody that's alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to talk to?
Anybody that's alive on the planet, boringly, I would like to run and give a huge hug to Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and just probably ask him how did a comedian, a professional comedian, answered the call to run for the president in a timely manner and discover the grit that has taken now to allow the country to withstand. That would be the one person, I think.
So if you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger version, 20 years old or so, and you could give that version a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained over all these years, what would you tell that young version?
Girl, take a chill pill. It ain't that serious. Everything was a matter of life and death. And so I would just tell her, take a chill pill. It's just a matter of life. It's never a matter of life or death. You will not miss that window. None of us will. When it's time to go, we will go. Until then, just learn to enjoy life. Just trust life. Enjoy, no matter how hard. Find a way to enjoy life.
So, the one thing over the COVID time period was, we all relied on art, whether it was visual, music, books, whatever it was, TV, film. What was it for you? What art was it for you that you relied on, that you still rely on, that you love in your life?
Well, I think, the honest, heartfelt answer would be on my face. Truly on my face. It's been reframed, and it's been one thing that has taken me through and continues to take me through. And it's the one thing, if everything else I were to lose, I would want to keep. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, on the safety of being human. And we, like anybody else, we did our share of Netflix binging and just watching it with zero guilt and knowing that, hey, I am just being human, and what a privilege it is to be this faulty, imperfect vehicle for experiencing life. So that's the two things.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of yourself. Who do you think you are?
I know myself to be a spark of light that is continually expanding. I refer to that in my language as a child of God, a great overall designer. And I know that to be my most important identity.
I want to end everything on a good note here, and I'm curious, what's the best fan letter or client response that you've ever gotten from your work?
Let me think. I've sobbed my share of getting beautiful. But what comes in is a tender moment. I've had a client who was actually diagnosed with terminal cancer, older gentleman, and he was given just a few months. Through our work together, we saw his time really being extended, not due to the work. I believe the time of going and leaving is not controlled, but the quality of life is. But we were extended that period, and within 2 years, I witnessed him being able to accomplish those things that he still was going to accomplish. And he's come to some of these seminars and classes with me and has inspired so many people of showing them how you've got to live life till the very last breathing moment, just fully and completely. And the most tender feedback or testimonial that I would have was when it was his time to go, he's asked his wife to call me so I could help him cross over. And the gift that I've received, I've lost a lot of people in my life, but the gift I've received of understanding the sacredness of life through that experience is probably by far the most tender moment in my life.
So if anyone out there wants to learn more about you and your services and anything that you do, Victoria, where can they go? Where's the best place?
I'd love to offer to peek into the driving emotion that drives them. We have a great quiz. It's found at moneyquiz.me. And when you go to that site and take a really fun, quick quiz, it tells you which most important emotion in your life drives you and allows for you to accomplish things, but also how in some ways it can block you from prosperity. And then it offers you 3 universal laws and practical applications to start opening that prosperity without losing your identity, without compromising who you're born to be, but supporting it without shrinking kind of the gift that you've come to give. And that's at moneyquiz.me.
Wonderful. Victoria, thank you for opening up. Thank you for your time today. Good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, and music around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.